Welcome to We Never Met, the podcast where I have interesting strangers on every single week. Today we have, if you want to introduce yourself, all the way from West Virginia, as we just said.
Midwest Native P or Patrick McConaughey.
How you doing, man? How is it out there?
Good, man. I'm just getting home from night shift last night. But yeah, everything's good. Summer in West Virginia, can't beat it.
Where do you work? Where did you just come from working?
I work an hour and 55 minutes from the house, so it's a 2-hour drive each way. It's over more towards the center of Pennsylvania, or western Pennsylvania, and then like right on the Mason-Dixon line down into West Virginia. There's kind of where I cover. So I live in the northern Panhandle of West Virginia, up near Pittsburgh, kind of.
Okay, yeah, and you grew up in Wisconsin. So what brought you to West Virginia in the first place?
So I was actually born and adopted in West Virginia. And I actually grew up in a town of about 900 people right on the Mason-Dixon, way out in the country. And my parents divorced and I moved to Wisconsin when I was 12. So I was a Wisconsin resident from 12 to 26. And now I'm back here for work full time.
Yeah, because those are like 12 to 26 is a pretty formative gap of like changing in like those years for sure. So when you were in Wisconsin from like that age, is that when you started toying around with like developing brands and designing and things like that? Or was it even before that?
It was when I was in Wisconsin, definitely. When I was like 17, I would come down here for summers. And when I lived here, I'd go to Wisconsin for summer. So whenever I was living in Wisconsin full time, I was coming down here. And my friends had friends' parents had like a vinyl shop or graphic shop. And they let me just kind of go in and just like play around. And that was like kind of the first little step I got into it. And I started designing like my first brand, and I ran with that for a couple years and had fun with that, and just kind of, that was 15 years ago. So now I feel like we're finally in the right spot.
What was the first brand that you developed? What was it called?
The first one I did was called Petit Racing, and I was real into like motocross, and my friends raced and did some of that stuff. So we were all into Fox racing. It was getting real big, and I wanted to rival them. So I was like, we can make our own and run with it. I've always been very ambitious dreamer. So that was my first one. And it was actually cool. I had an aunt who's a VP of some big marketing company in Florida. So she had a bunch of interns back then make me up the logos and stuff. So not even realizing how important that is or how hard it is to get that now on your own, or expensive. I had a little help, but it never really took off and never went anywhere. It never materialized to much besides a few t-shirts and a bunch of logos and maybe some business cards to make me feel cool. But besides that, it wasn't much more.
How many, I guess, designs and brands were there between that and then Midwest Natives where you stuck with that one?
Probably in development, probably like 4 total besides before Midwest Native. Other ones that I ran with the Petit Racing until I was like 21, 22, and then kind of realized that wasn't the exact lane I wanted to be in. And we moved up into the mountains of Breckenridge when I was going to school in Colorado, and kind of got more into like some streetwear stuff as like lifestyle and streetwear brands that, were just more immersed in like that culture we were living. And I was like, this is kind of like the lane I'd like to be in. So I started designing another one called Pink Raptor. Well, then like a couple years later, there was a company called Pink Dolphin came out and like hit it big, and they're in like PacSun and Zoomies and that. So I kind of just threw that to the wayside. And but there's a few others in between there. But it wasn't long between when I dropped like those ones to Midwest Native, because Midwest Native's been my thing since probably like 7 years now. I've been like really in my head trying to get it going and like stuck with that. And like you said, I was going between brands and just trying to figure out what was going to be my home, where I was going to fit. I grew up with a strong like Native American culture in my family. And so when the Midwest Native thing came along, my mom and I were spending the summers when I was working here in the oil field. I'd go home. We would travel and go to Native American museums, and we'd always go through the Great Lakes region, is where we always stay. So that like really hit home for me, and I was like, I really like that. So I reached out to a buddy in Milwaukee, Zach Beeman, that owns Concept Envy, and he started helping me develop. And try and get my head onto where I needed to be now, I guess. And that was kind of the starting point when I was like 25, 26.
Yeah, I mean, starting this stuff at such a young age, what was it about like designing brands and things like that that was like spoke to you so much that you like really enjoy? Because I mean, when you're a kid, you're only really doing stuff that you like, you know.
Yeah.
So what was it about that stuff that you really enjoyed so much?
It was honestly just the making my own clothing. I grew up with not a lot, and then moving to Oconomowoc, which is pretty like wealthy area. Seeing how like the clothing culture, it was all about like what you wore and like what you got. You know, I moved there right in middle school. You know how ruthless like kids are. So like,
yeah, bad time.
If you didn't have like the certain clothes or whatever, it was well known, and that's when it first like sunk in with me to like for the clothing thing to like if I make my own, I can do my own, because I don't want to ever just be like the normal and wear the same thing as everybody else either. So once I started that first day in that graphic shop, when I started making my own thing, that was once I got that feeling. It's always been about chasing that same feeling and just going after that same kind of high, if you will.
No, yeah, I know what you mean, because like when I was in like elementary school and stuff, I never wore jeans. I would wear like literally like a plain white shirt tucked into my sweatpants. That's all I wore. And then once I got to middle school, you like look around, you're like, oh, I can't wear this anymore, I guess.
That's so funny. Yeah, I did the same thing. I always wore like corduroy pants and like just off the wall things. But I mean, I grew up so far out in the middle of nowhere that like, fashion, like culture or whatever you want, it's not really a thing. It's not like emphasized at all. It's just when in my young adulthood, I moved to Minnesota and moved to Colorado, and just seeing like some of those different cultures. I've been to New York a few times, and New York was a big thing for me to see like that streetwear culture of just like, I'm so used to like working on the farm or having, like work clothes, I guess. And so then to see people like, oh man, you can put this on and like go do your own thing, but let's still like look good. And like, I like that aesthetic of it, or like that mindset of like being able to put your own stuff on. And that's still like my goal to this day, I guess, is just like, I don't want to be putting work clothes on every day. I want to be putting my own stuff on eventually.
Yeah, for sure. And, you talked about like the Native American culture and how that impacted you. But with the specific design, even like the shirt you're wearing right now, what was your idea for like how you wanted things to look? Because you sort of do things by collection where things can be like very different depending on when you release them and what time of year. So how did you decide that you wanted to go down that route?
Well, on the time of year thing, I'm just like horrible with like from the time I order something, it'll be midsummer and I'm like, I need shorts. And then by the time I get everything, it's in the fall. And I'll be like, oh, well, middle of winter, we're about to release some Brewers shorts. And it's like, it's not even in season. Right. Makes sense. It's just about my style and like what I'll make to wear, and the ever evolution of like my style changing. So, stuff that I like had on deck for this year, or thought that I was going to make this year. And then you get a little bit further down the design trail on other things, and you're like, you kind of switch up and it kind of changes throughout. So, like you said, I do a lot of just like releasing by collection, and that's just like inspired by certain things that I pick out. Like the Midwest Trapper is the second in the collection of my Trap House collection. Like I did that to really represent like what the Great Lakes region was built on, was the fur trade. And like, that's what I appreciate, is like the grit and grind of making it on your own. Back in the Native American days and the early frontier, like there was no easy way about it. You had to make it on your own, be kind of self-sufficient. So I pick collections out and things like that on just things that I appreciate about the region, things that I appreciate about Wisconsin, is a large part of where my stuff is based off of. So
yeah, is that something to say too, why you sort of focused on the Midwest, is because of that more, I guess, hardworking blue collar? There's no like airs, I guess, people put on here,
Yeah, and I mean it's a lot of like my coming of age story in Wisconsin. The 12 to 26 for me is like when I really grew up on my own, and became myself. And that's just like a testament to like being around in Wisconsin, and like just the people, and just like the want to show love back to it, and just like some appreciation, and in my own way, obviously.
Yeah. So outside of like wearing your own clothes and things like that, what is your like personal style? Like, how would you define your own personal aesthetic?
I think ever changing for
Yeah.
one. Like this summer, I just started taking the sleeves off of everything and just wanted to go. But I mean, I think it's just ever changing more than anything. It's, whenever I first started doing stuff, it was all highlighter colors. And,
Mm,
back in like the early 2010s, it was, kind of reminiscent of the 80s style. And you're bringing
mm,
back like the windbreakers and just the brightness and the block shapes of stuff. So like a lot of my influence, I think a lot of my style influence comes from Pittsburgh. And, I kind of really like found my own niche when I moved back here full time like 5 years ago, and kind of got into like the streetwear culture. There is more. It's just like a really friendly group. There's a lot, like Pittsburgh has a ton of creative people that have come out of the city and made
mm,
it and do their own thing. And it's not just like following other avenues. And it's not, I'm not saying Milwaukee doesn't. I just didn't know those
sure.
people when I was there. I was working so much. When I was home, I was trying to spend time with my family. So I just wasn't in that same avenue back there. Whereas now, when I moved here, I forced myself into it, whether they liked it or not, just to meet people
Yeah.
and just like try and make friends that could give me tips, could give me like a mindset. And then that's like where my style was ran from with that. Before, my style was always still my own, but it was just the easier stuff out there. I wasn't like going out to like a specialty boutique to get like a certain pair of pants or, something like that. It
Sure.
was just more of like a basic, grab a pair of pants from like an American Eagle or something like that and just throw on a graphic tee. Then
Right.
like
Right.
now trying to like be stylish, if you will.
Yeah. 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 No, you just described every high schooler's wardrobe,
Yeah,
basically. You
yeah.
know? back,
Exactly.
back in the day. Sticking with this brand now and working and developing it and sort of having had experiences with all those other brands that led up to this one, what have you found was like the most important part of like developing and like maintaining a brand?
For me, it's just being authentic with myself. Like I mean, Midwest Native is by far the best I've done with any of them, and it's just the most consistent I've been. But that's due to me just like growing up and
Mm,
having like a full-time job that I can invest in myself to make stuff that I wanted and not make stuff that I thought other people would want.
mm, sure.
And I found myself doing that at times. Even, when I first launched my website, I would have people I didn't know text me and be like, I want this shirt in a different color. And I'd be like, oh, okay, I'll see what I can do. And I would try and facilitate that.
Sure.
Or I would release something in that colorway for the next time. But I just found myself like not happy with it. And
Mm,
one day I was just, why? I had like went through my products on my webpage and I'm like, none of this is just like generic stuff. It's, it just says Midwest Native. There's no like story behind it. There's no design intricacy like from my side. And
mm.
I just hated, I was like, that's not what I want to be. I want to just tell more of a story and have, very unique stuff and not just try to sell t-shirts or not try to, mass produce one design and get it out there, but just be more limited.
No, it's hard too because I've had this problem too. It seems like obviously you're a very nice person, so it's like, well, you want to make someone happy and change something if you can and do the best you can, but then it becomes this sort of like crowdsourced idea that it's like not even yours at the end of the day.
Yeah, honestly, that's what it is. Just being true to myself. That's the biggest thing, and just making stuff that I want, and then not listening to the outside.
Yeah. Is there a specific collection in your mind that you like the most or that you have really enjoyed creating even?
I did some Badger stuff last year, and that was like the first like real high quality stuff that I like had a manufacturer do. Every piece was like cut and sew. And I only made a couple of those. That was probably my favorite. And then that followed that up with like the Brewer shorts that I did that were all tackle twill.
Mm-hmm.
And just like taking that to me, like at that, I wouldn't say that's my favorite collection, but that was just my favorite like growth development period, because I went from trying to print on other people's t-shirts to having my own t-shirts made and having like my own hoodies and with my own designs, like actually like tackle twill sewed on everything. And so that was like my favorite growth period, just because it took such a big leap after so many years of really trying to figure it out, and then feel like finding truly like my own lane. And
Yeah.
so the collections though, like I like them all. I mean, that's all I wear is all my own stuff. So I mean, I don't have one specific by any means, but I mean, I definitely have a few that I love, but it's just the growth about everything. It's not even about the specific art piece. It's just like kind of it's that euphoric moment of when you make it and then when you put it on for the first time is like those are the two things that are my favorite parts of it all.
Yeah. Is there even a difference, even looking at just Midwest Natives as a brand from like when you started production, like the quality of your stuff till now, like you just talked about, like how has that evolved for you over time? And how do you even like figure that stuff out?
Oh man, that's the biggest learning process, like completely. Just because I didn't know when I started, I didn't know how to design. I I didn't know what to begin with. I just had
Right.
notebooks full of stuff, and that's when I reached out to my buddy Zach. That it was with Concept Envy. I was like, "Hey man, like, how can I do this?" And he just was like, you need to get on Adobe Illustrator, and you need to just figure that out."
Just
And
go for it.
yeah, so and that's what I did my first few years in the oil field. I was basically living out of my car and working 12, 14 hours a day. And so my off time, I would just sit. I got a nice MacBook and I got Adobe, and that's all I would do and just try and teach myself. And then once I figured that out, and I was like, okay, we're getting some basic designs and, font work and stuff like that. I was like, I need to, because my goal is I always want to do everything in house. And like,
Right. Right.
I want to print, I want to be able to screen print and do all this. It's just like not feasible when you don't have a large amount of space to
Sure.
like bring everything in. We went from like a fulfillment company. That was the first thing I found. I watched a YouTube video. I learn everything these days. And it
Yeah.
was just like, you need to find like a Shopify that has a fulfillment center that you can upload your designs to, and then they'll print it on their shirts. They'll package it for you. They'll send it out. So you basically have no overhead. So
Mhm.
I took that route, and I thought that it was exciting because I was finally getting whatever I wanted printed. Right.
Right. Right.
That was just like beyond exciting, but it grew old to me very fast because I knew it wasn't like my t-shirt. I could have my name like slapped in the back of it. I don't know. It just kind of felt disgenuine to me because the people that like I really look up to, like a John Geiger from Pittsburgh and Lapstone and Hammer, which is a store in Philly that I really appreciate, is creating the piece from the beginning, like the cut of it to picking out the materials to to how everything's sewn. And so like I learned that by just watching and just like trying to go to events that like of people I appreciated, and then seeing their garments and just kind of taking it in. Never there was never one like lane or train of like this teaching. It was just trying to grab as much info from everywhere that I could, and then just trying to make it the best of myself and not and be doing my own thing completely, having my picking out like the cut of a tee to the fabric, to having my own tags sewn in the back and not just like swapped out. And so just wanting to be better. That's what, I always, from when I learned like the basic process to now, was just like, I want to, all right, this is cool. Now, how do you make this better? Or how do you evolve and get better at this? And so that's what I mean, it's been a very hard process. When I
Yeah.
first started making shorts, the shorts were amazing and I love the shorts, but I was so excited to do tackle twill and like have stuff like sewn on and like have it be, I didn't even think about like, how is this short fit, or how these don't have pockets. So like I got all these shorts and I sent them out to all my friends. They're like almost 90% of them text me back and they're like, "Do we love these? But you should put pockets in them." And I was like, why it didn't even cross my
Good point.
mind. Yeah. I was like, so my one buddy in North Carolina, he like went to a seamstress and had them sewn in and would send me pictures. And I was like, oh man, that's just so much better.
Yeah.
So it's just, that. And so now like I'm when I send out stuff to a manufacturer, I really pick through all the details, because listen, they're going to take the easiest route, right? Because it's less
Right,
work
right.
for them, and they're gonna still charge you a premium price. So if you don't tell them you want pockets in there, then by all
They're not
means,
gonna put pockets.
yeah, they're not going to put pockets in there for you.
It's a new
So
sleek design. You don't need pockets anymore.
yeah, and that's when I made those shorts too. I didn't think of like, I just said like a basketball type fit,
Hmm.
and I didn't think of like openings on like the legs of this or anything. So like some of the bigger sizes, they're just like massive,
Oh,
and I was
sure.
like, oh man, like I didn't even. And then I asked about it. They're like, yeah, you can change whatever, and I'm just like, that's a hard
Now I
learning
know.
process. Yeah, the next time we will come back with that.
Yeah, but that is true though. It's like all those little things that when you wear clothes, you don't think about it. Like you don't think about the openings on your shorts. You just expect them to be regular.
Yeah, 100%. And I honestly never. That's like part of the biggest evolution for me is like these last 3 years, and why I haven't released a ton of stuff is just trying to find. I've got tons of samples in my house that have just never that I've might be on my Instagram, but I've never sold any of or made it because I'll find a manufacturer, we'll get one made, and then it's just like not anywhere what we want it to be, and or there's some problems that like I made a windbreaker. Love the windbreaker. I think it's an amazing piece. But like then the sample was expensive, but once we wanted to mass produce it, it was just as expensive almost. And I was like, I can't do this. And then I'd already overextended myself on like the hats that were going with the collection. And I was like, man, I'm like $3,000 into something that I'm not even gonna get the back on. And it was like that's a tough learning process to learn too. So
Yeah, yeah. Do you have like crates of like old stuff in your house now?
oh yeah.
Yeah.
So I have a walk-in closet that's just packed with tons of unreleased samples, and then like my faux workshop downstairs, I just have containers full of hats and hoodies and leftovers and stuff like that. Actually, somebody has made me get rid of a lot of stuff lately with the new baby. So
Oh, sure.
I've just been sending. If you hit me in the DMs, and I probably just send you stuff is what has been going on. I've just been shamelessly,
You're doing a purge.
yeah, getting rid of everything I can. People have just like recently been hitting me up. I'm like, hey, what size are you? And I'm like, awesome. I'm gonna send you all this, and
Here you go.
just to get it out of my house. But that's more exciting to me than selling something. I don't make it to sell it. I make it so that people can wear it that actually want to wear it and have
Right.
genuine stuff. And so like that, it's been honestly more fun for me just like giving the stuff away and like getting the product out there, and then seeing people wear it has been the most exciting part right now.
Yeah, that has to be so cool. Even to like see like on Instagram if like people you don't know are wearing like a shirt or a hat that you made, it has to be cool.
It's been so much fun this last year. One of my friends was on a TV show, so we got to see my stuff on TV,
Oh, that's
and
cool.
like that was like real exciting. And then, like you said, people. I saw pictures of somebody recently, and I was like, "Wait, that is my shirt." I was like, "Get out of here!" And not even knowing that another friend had given them that. And so yeah, that's the most exciting part is just having my stuff worn by people that actually want to wear it, and knowing it's limited, and not that everybody else can just have that same thing.
Yeah, and you sort of alluded to this though. You're a new father, newer. Has that affected your creativity or like what you want to create? Just having sort of this new life experience.
I don't think it's affected my creative side, just because everything that I'm doing is I'm years behind, right? So it's all stuff I've been working on for years, and it's
Sure.
still like in development. So it's just changed me mentally, being a dad, on just like my everyday wanting to. You're not going to see me sitting at my computer for the 5-6 hours like I would before and trying to design. I'd much rather be with him. So, which is all, which is amazing. I would much rather spend that time with him than to be doing anything else, let alone designing clothing or work, either way.
Yeah. Did you ever think about designing clothes for him?
Yeah, and
events and
that's
stuff.
another thing is like that's the only thing now it's really changed is now I would never ever wanted to make like kids clothing, and I really don't even release like stuff below medium. But now I'm like, I could probably do some onesies and some like and some other stuff. And it's cool just to have him. Like we have stuff that were samples of mine that we've cut up and made into stuff for him and or have him wearing. And yeah, I mean that's the ultimate circle I can, to having my son wear my own stuff. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. And so projecting into the future, like where do you want to take Midwest Natives? Like what you sort of talked about, creating everything from start to finish, like in-house and being able to do that. Like what are your next steps? Where do you want it to go? Like as far as the brand?
I thought about this question a lot. I think that a few years ago, if you asked me this, or even maybe a year ago, I would have said brick and mortar in Milwaukee. And now I would say that I would right where we're at. I'm just like very, very happy with this where we're coming into, and just like doing limited collection releases and just building on stories from before. And this whole new rollout that we're getting ready to launch with the new website, and just it'll have more video story behind everything, and kind of like a one-on-one almost like we have just with me talking about like why I did things. Because I think that's the only thing I've really been missing is just like telling the story about why I designed something or why the specific thing got created. I would like to maybe be in a couple stores, but I've thought about this a long time, but I really like the exclusivity part of just not being, just kind of being like an oddity that, is not like something you can stop down. But I would definitely take the call from Moda if they call me. So I couldn't say that for sure.
Yeah, no, there's something about sort of not sort of like intentionally buying something rather than like stumbling across it. You know what I mean? Where you're like, oh, I'm going to go to Midwest Natives because I want to get one of their shirts because they're awesome, rather than going to like a store and be like, oh, this is kind of cool. There's something like cool and unique to knowing that you want it.
There definitely is. And that's how I mean, I don't buy a lot of other clothing now just because I have too much of my own. So, but this, I do follow a few brands that I'm inspired by and that I follow closely, and they do the same thing, and that, they release stuff kind of when they want to and just piece by piece. And it's like when you get that, it's just like a little more special. And I know for me, it's like easy to get my stuff, but for them, it's kind of a little more difficult to get that clothing. So when you do get through and you're the one that get it, I mean, it's like kind of a more special piece for you. It's like a limited thing, and it's like not, that there's a lot of people that wanted it and you have it. And that's why, like, I don't buy, I'm a huge sneakerhead, but I don't buy shoes anymore at all. Like, I was spending too much of money I should have been investing on myself, but just, it's cooler to just wear what you want than to, try and chase like the hot shoe or whatever.
It's also just, I used to live in Chicago, and I would see people like outside shoe shops, like lined up for blocks, For sure. I don't think I have the patience to do that in the first place.
I mean, it's just like, if you look at it on a grand scale, because there's probably 5 years ago where I thought, man, I could just start selling my shoe collection and like the stuff that I'm getting and probably like do decent. And then you look at it and it's like, it's a volume game, right? You're really only, I mean, I couldn't replace my day job with it unless I'm selling, 30,000 pair of shoes a year. So it's like what you need to invest, you might get a really cool shoe, one time for retail when it releases on Nike or whatever. And you make a couple $100 or, maybe 1,000 at the very most. But like, what's the, sustainability of that? That's not like,
and it's also not your own work, and you're not like putting any creative thought into it,
Yeah, for sure. And that's what, the part of like the streetwear that pulled me in Pittsburgh was John Geiger. And he's like started out with just like custom shoes and like just doing his own Air Force Ones. And like that, when I saw that, I was like, man, I don't even want normal shoes anymore. Like, this is so cool to just like take your own and do it. And I know Milwaukee's got a ton of like really amazing custom people that do shoes. And, that's what I would go after now. Or, if I was going to go and spend money, I would go after something that's like very unique and also supporting somebody that's smaller than just like feeding the machine of Nike.
Right. Yeah. So where can people find out more about Midwest Natives and like collections that you're releasing?
My website's midwest-native.com. That'd be where everything will be posted. And then Instagram is Midwest Native and the number 1. And Twitter is the same. And my personals are Midwest Native P on Instagram and Twitter. Everything will be, we have a new website launching here in the next week or so. And that's going to be kind of my main storytelling thing, but everything will be on Instagram and on our page and everything. And we'll keep everything up to date on there.
Well, awesome. Thank you so much for taking the time. It was great to talk to you. Yeah. And I love what you're doing. So keep it up, man.
Thanks, Sam. I appreciate it, man. It's been a long time. I've been loving your show since the very first episode when I listened to you. I think the first one was Mismatched Up, right?
Yeah, that was the first one.
Yeah, I've been a big fan ever since the beginning.
Well, thanks. I appreciate you coming on, man, and I'm excited to see the new website and stuff.
Thank you. We have a lot of good collections coming out this fall, so I think it'll be a real testament to the growth in the last 2 years, even though we haven't done much. So it'll be a good fall.
Yeah, I'm gonna DM you with my sizes to see if I can get some exclusive stuff.
Oh, I got you, man.
All right. Well, take it easy, man.
Thank you. It's been good talking to you.
You too.